The show is called Woman in a Rowboat, which is borrowed from a 1965 de Kooning painting that's on view in the exhibition. And I really thought about that both because of the poetry of the title, but also because of the kind of claim it makes. It says woman in a rowboat, so it's a kind of very small narrative, a description, and you go to look at the painting, you can barely find the woman, there's no rowboat, it's nothing like the image in your mind. And so this kind of idea of what we say we're doing, what we're doing, and what it means to observe someone else. But de Kooning has this heavy baggage, like this kind of misogynistic heavy baggage of what it is to look at a woman from the outside and depict her. And I think this idea that like someone is looking right at you and you can't see yourself in that image. In someone else's image of you, you are not visible. But to yourself, there's like this really rich space, this like infinite space of inside you. When you're putting an exhibition together, you're responding to two things, which is the work and the space. And maybe that's kind of an obvious thing to say, but kind of reconciling those two things is quite difficult. So you could have a pile of paintings that you really want to show and they don't fit, they don't go together, they don't work in the space. And so having done this exhibition last year, I was sort of really thinking about how I wanted to take advantage of the architecture to tell a story and to think about the visitor's choreography. Like a show is ultimately a story, and they are moving through space, and so it becomes narrative in that way. The show begins with these really cacophonous two works, one by Joan Snyder and one by Anselm Kiefer, and they're both landscapes. And hers is this like really hectic, like fertile, pink, gestural, springtime landscape that includes at the bottom of the work a kind of shelf with the palette of the paint drippings. And Kiefer's is like this incredibly thick impasto kind of fall scene of a forest. And so you sort of have this death, birth thing happening already. You're like in the valley, you're sort of like very much betwixt and between spring and autumn. And it's not a picture of a landscape, it's a psychic space. So in this gallery are only 4 artists, but I think they really embody the central ideas of the exhibition, which is Atel Adnan, who is most famous as a poet, but made these incredible small abstractions that use really elemental shapes and colors, but are hard not to read, almost as a landscape. And then these works by Joan Semmel, who is an artist in her 80s or 90s, and who has continued to paint her body over time. And these 2 different works, you really see this moment of like turning away from the viewer to like deny the viewer access to yourself. And then you also see this painting, which is so clearly about what we see when we look at ourselves. It's like from the perspective of someone looking down at their own body, but it's totally abstracted and surreal and grotesque, and there's all these kind of unnatural colors. And then this incredible work by Tom El-Sai, who is a much younger artist based in Miami. Up close, you really see how much work has gone into it, how many singular gestures and moments comprise this painting and how complicated it is. Early in this process, Guillermo mentioned that his family had a work by Remedios Varo in their collection. And she's an incredible surrealist, and he showed me this painting, which is this woman wrapped in her own hair sitting at a table. There's a hand reaching out from behind. There's a cat made of leaves. There's a person upside down in a kind of pot. There's just anything you want to see, you can see in that painting. And it's this, very quintessentially surrealist, which kind of takes you into this dream state. And I was thinking a lot about this idea that the collection is primarily women. And what does that mean? Does that mean anything? And what does that mean? And I was thinking a lot about that figure at the table as a kind of starting point, and the kind of, that's an imagined scene, but it's arguably like you can attribute it to that figure at the table. It's her inner world, her fantasy, her fears, kind of being expressed in this really vivid way. And so I just started to think about all of these paintings as a mode of expression of like our inner life. It's not a political statement, it's not a mode of communication, it's not for you, it's for me to talk about myself. And so kind of in that, you always end up seeing these different kinds of expression, which was really important for me. So some people think in images, some people think in words, some people it's using their hands. So it was really nice to be able to have a starting point that allowed me to mix types of work and scales of work in single gallery spaces.